Alright, I'm going to just go over the code for the rest of this. And what I thought I could do, not very easy to copy from a PDF into Eclipse. I found that out because you get a lot of this. So I was moving it over, but I didn't finish, and there's some errors in here. I don't know what they are, so I'm going to just go over the code that's in here. Now, I won't expect that all this code that's in here makes sense, but I just want to hit a couple of the highlights. Okay, you'll notice we still have our package statement. That hasn't changed. That looks pretty familiar, java.text.number format. But you'll notice when you look in here, all these imports are all Android dot something. All right, and you know this from something that when we talked about this earlier in the semester. If you forget any of these imports, when you start to use the controls in your programs, you're going to get error messages. And then you can use the IntelliSense that's built in there to add those. But the point is, you'll notice that the more complex your interface is, the more widgets you have, the more Android things that you're going to be importing. Does that make sense? And I believe we went over this before, but I want to say it to you again. If this summer, you know, you've got one of those days when maybe it's raining and you don't know what to do, but if you go out to developer.android.com, that's the site for basically all things Android. All right, and it doesn't look like it from here, but you can get to different places from in here. There are tutorials if you want to load stuff onto your own machine. There's all sorts of stuff that's in here. All right. So as it says, if you want to look at Android Studio, which is the package we may be using in fall, I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff in here. So where it says public class main activity, that pretty much is your main, just so you know. It's main activity because if you remember, originally when we were going through all the steps to set all this stuff up, right at the end, we said we wanted the name to stay main activity. If you go, I don't understand what you're talking about. If I just back this way the heck up, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. Then we got to here right at the end. And notice activity name, main activity. So what you see right there for that main activity, that is what's right there. All right. And it says it extends activity. Everything ends up extending the activity class in here. All right. Here's our variables. Now, ideally, at least, in what you see in purple on the screen, there's nothing in there that's new except for the fact of the type. So this is going to be our bill amount, okay, and it's edit text, text view, etc. So you can see the different stuff that's in there. I'm not going to go through any of those. Some of these look familiar. Private string, bill amount string equals double quote, double quote. Private float tip percent equals 0.15F. Now, I took this out of a book, and the author decided to make this a float. Remember, in Java, I'm not saying in Android, in Java, if you make a variable a float instead of a double, at the end of it, you have to put either a lowercase or an uppercase f. If we had said private double right here, then we could have just said equal 0.15. All right. What you'll notice is there's certain things that happen in virtually every Android application on create. Well, if I come back here and if I go into Google and I'm going to Google the Android development lifecycle. All right, notice the first thing that comes up, managing the activity lifecycle, and it's from developer.android.com. Hopefully this is the one, but one of these has got a picture in it. Of course, it couldn't be that one. I'm not going to waste my time or your time. But the point is, I'll just go back to the first one. We won't have the picture on it. All Android programs go through certain activities. All right, they all go through. There, we got it. Okay. So if you look at this, again, this is right from developer.android.com. You create your Android app. You start your Android app. It's possible after you've started your Android app, your phone rings. What will typically happen with most apps then is they'll automatically go into pause mode. The app will pause. If you're on your phone for an hour, typically the app will shut itself off. It'll shut itself down. But if you're only on for a couple minutes, it'll stay paused. But it explains in here the different stuff. And the reason I'm showing you that is when you've got create right here, that's that on create. And what you get used to doing in here is the first line in these methods, it's always super dot. Remember this? That means call the parent. That means even though we're going to write our own on create method, we still want to call the parent to make sure that anything that has to be done is done, and we do that first. Then we're basically telling it that what we're working on is in activity main. And this is getting references to all the widgets. Literally, in English, if you look up on the screen here, what these lines in purple say is go out to this file right here. And where you see all that stuff in XML, what I want is I want my local variables. So find it in XML, convert it to type edit text, and stick it into that variable. That's what we're doing for all these. So we're able to manipulate them programmatically. That's why we're doing that. Also, we wanted up here these three things, and this should make sense to all of you. Even if this part doesn't totally make sense. That right there says we want that where we put the bill amount in, where we manually put that in, and when we press those two buttons, we want those to be able to react programmatically. So we have to set up listeners for each one of those. And that's what we're doing right there. What this says, this shared preferences, and it confuses people, it doesn't have to. What this does is it takes all the stuff that we've set up above and it saves it into memory. All right? Why? Because technically, if my phone looks like this and I turn it like this, it has to redraw itself. All right? Or vice versa. So it does that save values in case it has to redraw itself so it has all the values that it had previously. All right? Here it's saying if you do pause, it's telling it to save that stuff. After you're done pausing, it tells it to resume. The calculate and display, this is probably the simplest routine that's in here. This is figuring out the tip. So this is saying here, if there's nothing in the tip box, so if you put nothing in there yet, then for our variable, set it equal to 0. If we didn't have that line in there and you tried to figure out the tip and it was empty, the program would blow up. Now it won't blow up. This figures out the tip, which is your bill amount times whatever percent you put in. Then you want to add your bill amount plus your tip amount, and that's your total. Then we're formatting them pretty here so they have the $sign and the decimal place with 2 decimal places. And finally, the other thing that's in here says every single time you click the % down button, go down a %, and every time you click the up button, go up a %. You'll notice they all say 0.01F. 0.1 is 1/100th. 1/100th is 1%. So that was quick, but that's what the code in here does. Again, if you weren't here the other day, and just so you're aware of this, if you do go out to the P drive for the class, you know the drill. But if you go out there, and for the 152-143 spring in class, there is a folder out there. There's not one for today, but there's one in here for last Monday, and that's got all the screenshots that I used to build this PDF. It's got some articles that I reference in the PDF. It's got PowerPoints from the book that I took this out of. It's got all the source code is in here. And this is a PDF that I gave out the other day. I might have extra copies here. I don't know if I do or not. But it's from chapter 1 of the Android book by Murak, which is a book I used a couple years ago. So you've got all of that information. All right. So Wednesday will be a lab. All right. Again, Carissa asked me this morning. She said, well, have you decided yet how long you're going to allow people to turn stuff in? I will tell you, it'll be noon on Monday. Because at noon, we have the Black Hawk picnic. And as I said the other day, some of you laugh, but yes, it is. It's as exciting as it sounds. Jeff hopes to be there by 12:30, and if possible, to leave by 12:45. All right? But after I do that, I'm probably going to St. Louis to visit my daughter because I haven't seen her in 3 or 4 months. All right? And so I do not bring a computer with me when I go there. So I plan on having all of my grades. We're here Monday morning. You're not. We're here Monday morning. So I'm going to be finishing up grades at that time. Those of you who finished everything, if you're in the C# class, we've had 5 assignments. Each assignment was worth 20 points. 5 times 20 is 100. Add yours up and you can probably figure out what your grade is. There were 6 assignments in Java. 6 times 20 is 120. That's what I'm going to base it off of. All right? Questions? All right, because that's all I have. Wednesday, again, will be lab the entire period.